In the last month, it's gone up 242%. Now, the problem is, how many times in history has anything increased its real value 242% in 1 month? And of course, the answer is zero. Okay, we're in never, never land. And I find it very funny that BlackRock is saying that we have exited boom and bust cycle.
Welcome back to Metals and Miners. I'm its founder and its host, Gary Bohm. Today we have a fantastic discussion lined up, and we're fortunate to have with us Bob Moriarty. Bob's the founder of 321gold.com and 321energy.com. Both sites feature articles, editorial opinions, pricing features and figures, updates on current events affecting both sectors, and more. Previously, Bob was a Marine pilot with more than 832 missions in Vietnam. He holds 14 international aviation records. Bob, thank you for your service, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, it's my pleasure.
So let's begin with a look back on 2024 from an economic and market perspective. What surprised and shocked you? What fell right in line with expectations? And what are you expecting moving into 2025?
That covers a lot of territory. I think the stock market in general and Bitcoin are scary in how fast and how far they're gone. And I think the next move has to be down, but we've had some incredible moves. It's been a great opportunity for people to make money. And as I point out in my books, if you want to make money, if you don't sell at a profit, the only other alternative is to sell at a loss. So people should have profit. And at the same time, because so much money has been sucked into the cryptocurrencies in the stock market, the resource sector is begging for investment. And I think there are going to be heroic, historic advances in resource stocks in 2025.
Interesting. Okay. So, Bob, global debt has increased from 221 trillion back in 2016 to 260 trillion in 2020 to a forecast of 315 trillion this year, according to the IIF Global Debt Monitor. What impact do you expect this global debt to have on the economy in 2025?
Well, the interesting thing is, if you look at the impact on the economy up until now, it's been very positive. However, it's totally artificial. The United States debt is up to 36 trillion, and it's a balloon waiting to pop. And when it does, it's going to totally change the financial landscape. I've argued for years that there's a general conflict between the debt-based system of the West and the resource-based system of the East, the BRICS companies, and the South, the global South. And I think very soon we're going to see a sea change financially, and it's going to be catastrophic for a lot of people.
So I'd like you to dive into that a little bit more. And I'm sure you've heard President-elect Trump talking about the tariffs that he's going to impose on any BRICS nation that avoids the dollar. How do you see these two opposing forces? How do you see them basically battling it out, and how do you see it playing out moving forward?
I'm going to give you a long answer that's important for you to understand. What happened on August 15th, 1971?
Nixon took us off the gold standard.
Nope. That isn't what happened.
Okay, what happened?
Okay, what was Nixon's speech about?
Why don't you just share?
Okay, it was about wage and price controls. Now, because we tend to be gold bugs, we look at taking the U.S. off the gold standards being important. However, the speech was about wage and price controls because inflation had soared to 3%, and Nixon was convinced we needed to clamp down on both wages and control prices. How many times have wage and price controls been successful in history?
As far as I know, zero.
Zero. None. Okay. So, what does that have to do with tariffs? When you start using tariffs as a weapon, how many times does it not blow up in your face?
How many times is it not? I would
Yeah.
say never. It never
Zero.
doesn't blow up in your
Okay.
face.
When you throw tariffs on another country, you're conducting a almost immoral form of warfare. Okay, Trump comes into office, and that's a big if. Okay, he's got to survive the next month. We're not sure that's going to happen. Trump comes into office and he puts a 50% tariff on country XYZ. Who pays the tariff?
Well, it's going to be the American consumer if they're purchasing the product.
Thank you. It is that simple. If you were for tariffs, you were for increasing prices and getting nothing for it whatsoever. And of course, the fatal flaw to using tariffs as a weapon is that tariffs are like a boomerang. Depending on how you throw it, it'll come back and whack you up the side of the head. So, Trump has some good ideas and he has some exceptionally dangerous ideas. And the idea of using tariffs as a weapon is one of the worst ideas I've ever seen, only second to wage and price controls.
Okay, understood your point on that very well, but what is your take on how this is going to play out? Or is one side or another going to take a knee first? Are they going to hold the line and there's going to be economic warfare being played with the American consumer in the middle of it? Is eventually the dollar going to have to bow to the natural resource, to the physical, tangible things? How do you see it playing out?
Gary, we're going to have to hold the number of questions down to 6 at a time. You gotta make it possible for me to answer the damn questions. Okay, let's talk
That's
about
hilarious.
what we know. What has the United States done with China regarding chip making machines?
Yeah, there's a war going on there for sure.
Yeah, exactly. The United States went to China and said, okay, we're not going to allow you the most advanced, best chip machines because you're going to compete with us. Now, I was fighter pilot. Okay, I have no problem whatsoever with the concept of competition. I think competition is a great idea. Indeed, competition economically between countries is a great idea, but warfare is a really bad idea. So, the United States put a restriction on shipping the advanced chip making machines to China. What did China do?
They imposed restrictions on the rare earths.
Thank you. Not only the rare earths, but gallium, gallium, uh, antimony, some very critical metals that the West and the United States need to do things. You've got to have gallium for color televisions, okay? So if you want to kill the American electronics industry, just cut off the rare earth elements. So my point is, don't walk into a bar and start a fight just to be starting a fight. To the extent that Trump understands the United States is no longer competitive economically, there are better solutions than starting a trade war. A trade war will be paid for by the American consumer. It'll drive the cost of everything up, and it'll put a lot of people out of business. A lot of people will lose their jobs. So I'm not in favor of that. I'm in favor of competition. And the way to do that is to reduce the government regulations and the paperwork and the nonsense that American companies have to go through. And certainly in the resource industry, we are being throttled by regulations.
So recently, you've probably heard this, BlackRock's Larry Fink, he recently said that the world economy has exited the boom and bust cycle. So essentially, since we've been booming, should we just assume it's a boom from here on out, only smooth sailing ahead?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? You've got the highest debt in history. What could happen that's bad? Here's what's important to understand. Do you happen to remember the forever bonds from the UK? They issued 100-year bonds, okay? They never intended to pay them. The $36 trillion that the United States owes, the government's never going to pay them. They're going to roll it over and roll it over, inflate the currency until it blows up, and then they're going to have to start all over. And when they start all over, they're going to have to start off with a currency that has some kind of value. One of my favorite sayings is, you cannot have an honest economy without honest money. And we don't have honest money, and we're going to pay a very serious price for it. Let me give you an example. I've got a friend here in France who bought a cryptocurrency called XRP. It was hovering between 50 and 60 for years. Okay, she lost money on it 99% on the time. In the last month, it's gone up 242%. Now, the problem is, how many times in history has anything increased its real value 242% in 1 month? And of course, the answer is zero. Okay, we're in never, never land. And I find it very funny that BlackRock is saying that we have exited boom and bust cycle. Are you shitting me? Okay.
To me, it seems like they're trying to, they want to keep the party rolling. They want people to continue to invest in the markets. And if we've exited the boom and bust and we've been booming, then there's no bust ahead. So let's keep investing.
That's exactly correct. And there's a number of good articles coming out now. Do you have any idea of how many cryptocurrencies there are?
No, I really don't.
These aren't the ones that have been created. These are the ones that have survived, because 40% of all cryptocurrencies have gone to crypto heaven. There are 15,000 cryptocurrencies. Okay, that's as close to fraud. Let me think of who it was. The Dalai Lama has started his own cryptocurrency. And when I heard that, I thought, they say nobody rings a bell at the top. And all I'm hearing is ding, 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 ding.
Well, look, Bob, if we've exited the boom and bust cycles and we're just going to be in the boom, you've got meme coins like Fartcoin. I'm sure you've heard this. It's worth more than 38% of the companies that are on the S&P. 38%. Fartcoin is worth more. I mean, it's got to be legit.
Well, Bitcoin has a $2 trillion market cap. and it's an
Yeah.
imaginary investment.
Let me ask you this question. So,
Okay?
Bob, while smart money players like Buffett and other corporate insiders, they're reducing their stock holdings, likely in anticipation of a downturn, everyday consumers, often referred to as dumb money for their tendency to misjudge major market turning points, they've never been more bullish. According to a recent survey, a record 56.4% of retail investors are optimistic about the stock market's prospects over the next 12 months. From a contrarian perspective, isn't this deeply concerning, as it suggests that retail investors are acting as exit liquidity, eagerly purchasing stocks that the smart money is just offloading?
100%. Okay. I went to 5 different colleges. I went to the University of Texas. I went to Southern Methodist. I went to Columbia. I went to Iona, and I went to Dade County Community College. At Southern Methodist, we were required a core course to study a book called Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. The book was written about 1850, and the strange thing is that it's about 30 chapters where they're talking about how stupid people have been. Now, Isaac Newton lost his fortune in the South Sea bubble. Okay, so this is not restricted to ordinary investors being dumb money. Some very smart people lost money. Do you remember who Irving Fisher is?
Yeah, during the Great Depression.
No.
No.
What did he
Was
say
he?
in October of 1929, before the Great Depression?
Okay.
The stock market has reached a permanently high plateau. And that is precisely what BlackRock is saying. And frankly, it's bullshit.
Yeah, it has me concerned. So we've experienced massive inflation and way higher prices in everything, especially over the last 4 years. While
Nope,
the rate of
nope, nope,
inflation,
nope, nope. Not like we're going to.
fair. Let me ask this question though to you, okay?
Okay. One at a
Now,
time.
I'm not disagreeing with that thought at all.
Nope. One at
But
a time.
I want to, yeah. But I want to ask you a question specifically to this massive inflation that we've experienced. So, the rate of inflation has slowed. It has not yet stopped. It has slowed, and it's ticking back up. That's all true. Short of another Great Depression, is there any other way to actually bring down the prices of things, not slow the rate of inflation? I'm saying actually bring down the prices to where they were 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Well, actually, if Trump managed to put handcuffs on government spending, one thing that staggered me, and I talk to a lot of people and I do a lot of interviews, I can't even tell you how the government is spending so much money. Okay, they're just throwing money at something, and we're increasing the debt $1 trillion every 3 to 4 months. Now that is absolutely not sustainable. It's totally flawed. You talked about the Great Depression. The next one's going to be called the Greater Depression because it's going to be far worse than the last one. We're setting up this ticking time bomb, and both Bitcoin, the cryptocurrencies, and the stock market in general, these are in a blow off top. This is what happens just before somebody yanks the rug out from underneath the market. But you were talking about how bad inflation has been. In relative terms, it hadn't been as bad as it's going to be.
So you see a 1970s style inflation era where we've had a peak, it came down, it didn't drop to zero, but now we're going to go back up and maybe have a higher peak?
Exactly.
Okay. So President Trump wants to impose these tariffs we've talked about on China, not just the BRICS nations, but on China in his upcoming term, and in large part to break up the BRICS bloc, but also to dismantle China's growth or their ascendancy, so to speak. what trump cards does China have in this trade war, and what are the ramifications of what they might decide to do?
Again, everything the United States does, there will be some kind of counter. And it's not just BRICS, and it's not just China. He was talking about increasing tariffs on Mexico and Canada 50%. One of the things people need to understand about Donald Trump is, first of all, he's an opera singer. Okay, were you aware of that? A lot of people
I'm
don't know
sorry,
this.
aware of
Donald
what?
Trump's an opera singer.
An opera singer?
An opera singer. Haven't you ever
No,
heard him speak?
I was on.
Me, 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 me.
Oh,
He's
you went
actually
there.
very good.
All right. So with a Trump 2.0 administration, do you see globalization coming to an end? And if so, what does that mean for the dollar and commodities?
God, I hope it comes to an end. It's been the biggest disaster. Uh, one of the best books written in the last 50 years is The Fourth Turning. And the two authors who wrote it absolutely predicted what was going to happen. We are in the fourth turning. And they suggested there would be one move to totalitarian government. And we have absolutely seen this. The government's lied about everything for the last 25 years, 100%. They lied about the cryptocurrencies. They lied about COVID. They lied about the GFC. They lied about 9/11. They lied about Gaza. They lied about Syria. They lied about Ukraine. However, there is a counter move of people who desire freedom, and people are waking up. And actually, the election of Donald Trump was not because Donald Trump is such a brilliant leader. It was a repudiation of the disastrous Biden Obama administration for the last 12 years, which spending's out of control, inflation's out of control. We've given our manufacturing economy back to away to China. And what we need to do is we need to retrench. We need to decrease regulations. We need to make it easier to actually do things in the United States. And we need to stop declaring war on everybody in the world. I mean, every empire eventually collapses when they get involved in military adventures. Now, can you give me any reason, give me a single reason, what do we stand to gain in the Ukraine-Russia war? How are we better off?
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate. I really don't know.
Oh, you can't. Nobody knows because there isn't anything to gain. Okay. This is something that's gone on for 2.5 years. It actually started 10 years ago. It has the world on the verge of World War III, yet we don't stand to gain anything. Now, if you get drunk and you walk into a bar and you start running your mouth, okay, a big biker is going to come up and he's going to cream you. Now, at the very least, he should have a hot chick that you're going to impress. But the United States just walking into a bar running our mouth, and we're going to get our butts kicked. And we are getting our butts kicked financially, economically, politically. And that's just wrong. We need to restart the United States. We don't need to make America great again. We need to restart the United States all over again. We need to go back to the Constitution. We need to have issues of law. We need to get the DOJ under control. We need to get the FBI under control. We need to fire the CIA entirely. We keep fighting these wars where they stand to gain nothing. I was an F-4 pilot when I was 20 years old, and very probably I was the youngest F-4 pilot ever. and it's no big deal. I started flying earlier, therefore, of course, I was younger. But I look at something like the F-35 program. That's the biggest government boondoggle, most expensive $2 trillion disaster to build an airplane that isn't worth crap. Okay, it's a disaster. Our aircraft carriers are sitting targets. Okay, it doesn't make sense to use tanks anymore because they're sitting targets. The job that I did in Vietnam as forward air controller, I was going out, and when American troops got into contact with the North Vietnamese or with the Viet Cong, they called on us, and we controlled artillery strikes and naval gunfire and aircraft. They have replaced me with $1,000 drone. The nature of warfare has totally changed in the last 2.5 years, and we don't realize it. And we've got countries like the UK. Do you have any idea of how big the army is in the UK?
No, I really don't.
About 75,000 people. Now, when I was in the Marine Corps, when I joined the Marine Corps, we had 190,000 people. Okay, but I don't consider that a big fighting force. 75,000 people you could fit into Wembley Stadium. Okay, they spent billions of dollars on 2 aircraft carriers, and they're going to have to shut both of them down because they can't get anybody to work in the Navy anymore. We need to restart the world, not to reshape it in the globalization thing. I'll ask you another question about globalization. You obviously are familiar with the term. In 2030, you will owe nothing, you will own nothing, and you'll be happy. What kind of people use those terms?
Yeah, those are typically people who are looking to control a population.
Well, actually, the people who use those terms are slaves. Okay, but if you and I, because we're just peasants, don't own anything and don't owe anything, we're happy because we're slaves, and nobody has ever heard a slave. I'm unhappy, boss. I need a raise. Really? How about a whipping? Uh, but if we don't own anything, somebody has to. And of course, that's the globalists. That's the World Economic Forum. That's the oligarchs who want to own everything and control everything. And you can go throughout history, you can read every history book ever written and realize these guys always screw it up 100% of the time.
Bob, let's move over to gold here. Central banks bought 60 tons of gold in October. That's the largest monthly net purchase so far in 2024. Meanwhile, China has resumed gold purchases in November. We know that they were, buying the whole time, but this is the first time in 6 months that they said they paused, that now they are purchasing again. This year alone, India and Turkey have purchased almost 80 tons each of gold. Central banks in total have now purchased almost 700 tons of gold year to date. That's comparable to 2022. Why are the global central banks buying so much gold, especially if gold is not going to be used in the future financial system?
Because they can read the handwriting on the wall. Anybody who doesn't see this has their eyes and their mind closed. The amazing thing is, we're looking at all these central banks, and we're looking at India, and we're looking at Turkey, and we're looking at China and saying, oh, these guys are buying a lot of gold. But who is it that's not buying gold? And this is more important than who is buying gold. Who is it that's not buying gold?
Well, at least reportedly, it's the G7, right?
No, it's the retail public. Okay, this
Well,
is a
yeah,
market in
the
which the
Western, yeah.
public is not participating, and it's like if you want to invest, let's go back 55 years. I get into the F4. I'm 20 years old. I'm the youngest naval aviator in Vietnam. So I get into a squadron, and we had one pilot who was really an ace. He was great. And I went up to him and I said, "How do I become the very best pilot in the squadron?" He looked at me and said, "Sorry, kid, you can't." And I felt like that was kind of an insult. And I said, "What do you mean I can't?" And he said, "You can't because I'm the greatest pilot in the squadron." I said, "Oh, okay. So how could I get to be like you?" And he said, "That's easy. You just copy everything I do. You do things exactly the way I do things, and you can be the second greatest pilot in the squadron." And I said, "That's kind of cool. I think I'll do that." Now then, who would you copy if you wanted to be the second best investor in the last 30 years?
It would either be Buffett or Druckenmiller, probably.
It would be Warren Buffett. Okay. And what's Warren Buffett doing with Bank of America?
Selling.
With both hands. What's he doing with American Airlines? Selling with both hands. With Apple Computer, selling with both hands. You don't have to be smart to make money in investing. All you have to do is do exactly the opposite of what the mob is doing and find out people who are smart, who have made money, and copy what they're doing, and you can be the second best fighter pilot squadron.
So, Bob, despite gold already gaining approximately 30% this year, history shows that there's a strong tendency for gold to continue to rise strongly after the first federal funds rate cut in a rate cutting cycle. As the In Gold We Trust report has stated, rate cuts are like rocket fuel for gold. The report has also showed that over the past 3 rate cutting cycles, gold has risen an average of 32% within 2 years of the initial rate cut. So if gold follows a similar trajectory, Bob, it would imply a gold price of $3,380. Do you expect this historical pattern to hold with today's gold bull run that's happening?
Absolutely not. Those guys are totally wrong.
Okay, what are you expecting?
It's going to go a hell of a lot higher than that. Okay, once gold actually breaks out, and it has broken out, it goes up hundreds of percent. Okay. Uh, every commodity, every investment will go through boom and bust cycles. And I was around and I was invested in 1979 to 1980. Now, the very top in gold and silver was on January 21st of 1980. But what everybody who didn't participate doesn't realize was silver went from $15 an ounce to $50 an ounce in 6 weeks. Okay. We are going to have a boom in metals and in resources like the world has never seen. And if you think cryptocurrencies can go up 242% in a month, so can gold.
Do you see a scenario unfolding in your thesis here with the sustained higher gold prices where the miners' earnings per share will go up so high that they'll get chased by the Western investors and the miners will then outperform gold?
Absolutely. They should outperform by 500-600%. In 1929, 29% of the market of the New York Stock Exchange was in mining stocks. if you take the entire spectrum of investments now, metals and resource stocks are half of 1%. So
Yeah.
People are going to see things that are really pretty amazing. And if you look at the daily sentiment, which I'm a big fan of, uh, gold and silver are nowhere near top. Okay. And people are waking up to this and realizing, hey, wait a minute, once you break out. So your sources are absolutely correct in as far as what happens when you have a rate cut. However, the impact is going to be bigger and it's going to be longer. The rate cuts are just a catalyst.
I want to switch over to energy here for a moment. There's been so much bullish sentiment and happenings in nuclear energy and the uranium space. The big tech companies, they're buyers of old nuclear plants, restarting what's been shut down decades ago. Many countries are either pledging to go nuclear or to up their nuclear output by several factors. America is pledging to triple nuclear output by 2050. I can go on and on about how bullish the demand side is. And on the supply side, production isn't meeting targets and expectations literally anywhere. So you have a major and growing supply imbalance, which historically is super bullish for the equities, yet none of this has translated for the equities this year. In fact, after a nice run up, they've lost quite a bit of momentum. What's going on with the uranium equities? And because of all the bullishness that's embedded in the sector, do you expect them to run again?
Well, I know they will. Okay. One of the things that you failed to mention, what is the biggest decrease in supply?
Well,
What
Kazatomprom,
country
I would
just
think, right?
what country just said, screw you? We're not going to sell uranium to you.
Well, that was Russia.
Thank you. Okay. So you got a situation. Uh, there is a German word for a lack of wind. Oh, and I didn't know this. This just came up. Norway has cut the power lines to the EU because Germany shut their nuclear power plants down. We've gone for 2 or 3 weeks, literally just lately, with zero wind in Germany. And of course, when the wind doesn't blow, the turbines don't turn. The cost of electricity in Germany is so high today that if you take a 5-minute shower, it costs you €5. Okay. It is 4 times higher than it is in France, and France is high. France is 8 times higher. I've got a place in Grand Cayman, which used to have the most expensive power in the world. The EU and the whole green energy bullshit, and it's bullshit from stem to stern. The wind turbines don't work. EVs don't work. What it takes to mine lithium and copper and nickel and cobalt and graphite, it is very damaging to the environment. A EV actually produces more pollution than a gasoline or diesel powered car. We've gone so far overboard. We've gone into never land over the last 20 years, and we need to reverse that. Are you aware of how many pipes were involved in the Nord Stream?
Wasn't it 2?
There was Nord Stream 1 and there was Nord Stream 2. How many pipes were there?
I'm not sure.
4. Now, how do
Okay.
we know the United States blew it up? The United States military had a aircraft carrier called the USS Kearsarge right over that area up until a week before the sabotage. It was the biggest act of economic terrorism in history. It was a $30 billion act of economic terrorism. How do we know the U.S. military did it?
You tell me.
There were 4 pipelines. How many did they succeed in blowing up?
2.
3. 3 of the 4.
Okay.
If Germany went to Russia today and said, we screwed up, okay, why we got involved in that stupid war in Ukraine, which just happens to be the most corrupt country in the world. We made a mistake. We want to apologize to you. And by the way, could you turn the tap back on? They could do that, okay? Because the 4th pipeline in Nord Stream 2, okay, is fully functional, and it's just waiting for somebody to turn on the tap. And all Germany would have to do to reduce the cost of their electricity, probably tenfold, would be to realize they made a horrible mistake in the sanctions. Now, I wrote a piece about a week after the war started, and I said that the EU and NATO and the United States were committing economic suicide. There are breweries in Germany that have been in operation for 500 years that have had to shut down because they can't afford the cost of fuel. Volkswagen, I think, is shutting down 11 plants, and their workers are some kind of pissed. I mean, Volkswagen, Germany is the economic driver of the EU. Okay, I'm in France, and France should be the richest country in Europe because we've got unlimited agriculture here. It's just perfect for growing things. And the French people are just as smart as the Swiss, just as smart as the Swedes, just as smart as the Germans. But they've got these incredibly stupid tax laws here that make it impossible to make money in business. But the Germans have committed suicide, and they could turn that around by going to Putin and saying, oh, by the way, we screwed up. And nobody in Europe, I mean, the European leaders, I talk about them as attacked chihuahuas.
So, Bob, staying on the commodity side, is there a sector right now in the commodity space that you view as being on sale?
Oh, uranium. Absolutely.
Okay. So, hey, this has been a fantastic conversation. Before we wrap up here and I ask Bob our final question, I want to point everyone over to our Substack. It's free. Go to metalsandminers.substack.com. We post free content on the consumer economy, markets, artificial intelligence, individual metals and miners, and all the expert interviews, just like this one that we conduct. They're all up there. And when you subscribe, we want to give you a free gift. It's a report that we wrote, and it's based on the important Ray Dalio foundational premise titled, If You Don't Own Gold, You Know Neither History Nor Economics. This free gift is a must-read for everyone on why we all should own gold. So head over to metalsandminers.substack.com, put in your email address to subscribe and receive the free gift on us. Also, I'm positive that you've enjoyed the conversation with Bob as much as I have. Please let him know, hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment below the video. It's now time for the Golden Nugget segment. Bob, I've been asking this question of my guests lately since we're coming to the end of the year, and I want to ask it to you. Picture a dinner party, Christmas 2029. We've got 2 tables. One table, they're really happy. One table, they're really sad. And it's all based on what they invested in right now, 2024 going into 2025. What do these 2 tables represent to you in terms of asset classes?
Bitcoin.
So the happy table is Bitcoin, or the sad table is Bitcoin?
No, the happy table is the people who shorted Bitcoin.
Okay.
The unhappy table is the people that own Bitcoin. Now, I wanted to talk to you about Ray Dalio. You know, I hate Ray Dalio. His quote you just made about gold, if you don't own gold, you don't understand history. That's the greatest quote I have ever heard. When I heard that, I thought, God, I would kill to be that smart. But that's a wonderful, wonderful quote. If you don't own gold, you don't understand economics or history.
Yeah. Well, Bob, thank you so much for coming on to Metals and Miners and for being so generous with your time, analysis, and ideas. It's really been awesome to spend the time with you. Would you care to please summarize your views real quick that you covered today, and then let those know who are tuning in where they could learn more about your work and how they can connect with you?
Okay, that was 5 questions, and we did restrict it to 6, so I'm okay with that.
Okay.
They go to my website, 321gold.com. They can go to Amazon. I've written about 10 books, and candidly, because I'm a big reader, I will tell you they are good books and they cover a variety of subjects. And I do interviews all the time. We are at a time frame in history that is the most dangerous time in history, but there is the greatest opportunity in history. The mainstream media has been revealed to be a paper tiger where they lie about everything, and people with any sense are starting to listen to the alternative media. The mainstream media lies about 100%. And I will agree that the alternative media lies about 50% of the time. But people lying 50% of the time are a lot more truthful than people who lie 100% of the time. The alternative media today is the source of valuable information, but you need to obviously temper it with good sense. There has been no time in history where there was so much opportunity if you will pay attention to people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah. So, Bob, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your views and your perspectives and your resource, 321gold.com. I'll have that up on the screen, and it'll be in the description area for those to click through to get over to you. I've been following you for a couple of years, and I appreciate your viewpoints, and I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for being here with us, and everybody else, thank you for watching. Everyone, over to our Substack. It's free. Go to metalsandminers.substack.com. We post free content on the consumer economy, markets, artificial intelligence, individual metals and miners, and all the expert interviews, just like this one that we conduct. They're all up there. And when you subscribe, we want to give you a free gift. It's a report that we wrote, and it's based on the important Ray Dalio foundational premise titled, "If you don't own gold, you know neither history nor economics." This free gift is a must-read for everyone on why we all should own gold. So head over to metalsandminers.substack.com, put in your email address to subscribe and receive the free gift on us.